Hi, I'm Bill Bishop, the CEO of the Big Idea Company. Imagine if you had a business where you were making 10 times more income, working 50% less, and having 100 times more fun running your business. Wouldn't that be great? Now, you're probably thinking, that's never going to happen. Okay. There's no way that's going to happen. Well, if you listen to this presentation, New Factory Thinker 2030, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Recently, I met a fellow who heard this presentation and 8 years ago. And he said, I took the ideas that I got from that presentation. I started a new factory, a new kind of business. And he just sold it, he told me, for $40 million. $40 million because he got this idea from this presentation. So this is an updated version of it. It's an even better one. It's looking forward to what's going to happen between now and 2030. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a whole new way to think about business. I call it new factory thinking. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep running your old factory, I call it, what you're doing right now. But you're going to create this new entity, okay? And it's called a new factory. And you're going to use this new way of thinking to build that business, okay? And the biggest beneficiary is going to be your existing business, okay? Because it's going to help you meet more customers, stand out in the marketplace. It's going to help you sell more high premium items, products and services, and it's going to help you build a business that's sustainable and takes advantage of all the cool things that are going on right now, like with AI and augmented reality and even quantum computing ultimately. Okay. So this is really future forward here. All right. And I'm going to teach you this way of thinking. And I'm going to give you a dozen examples of other people who've created amazing things with new factory thinking. Okay. So it's very inspiring. It's going to give you a lot of energy and it's going to make you really excited about the future. Now, it's over an hour long, okay? So I can imagine right away you're thinking, oh God, I don't have an hour, right? But what are you going to do with that hour? You're going to go watch a bad Netflix show or something? Or are you going to go and just lie on the couch or something? This is about an investment in your future. So I understand an hour, okay? That's a lot of time to sit and watch a video. But you could end up with a business from this where you're going to make 10 times more money, work 50% less, and have 100 times more fun. And maybe you'll end up like with that fellow that sold his business for $40 million. Like, I can't promise that, but it's my intention to help you try to do something like that. Okay. So I look forward to having you come over to watch this presentation with me. And I hope you'll get a lot out of it. I'm sure you will. Thank you. So I call this presentation New Factory Thinker 2030. So we're looking ahead now to the future. And most people don't do that when they're in business. They don't think about the future much. They're very caught up in the present of things that are going on right now, and actually quite a bit in the past because we're always thinking about, well, remember back then when we did this and that was a great time, and boy, I wish it was like that now. So that's understandable to be nostalgic maybe about that, but it's not a good strategy. We need to be thinking ahead, okay? And when we think ahead about the future, we also have to use a particular way of thinking about that because otherwise we're just replicating what happened in the past. So we need a new updated software maybe for our minds that gives us a new way to look at the future and be successful in the future. Okay, so that's the overall theme here today, and it's to help you come up with new and better ways to build the future business of your dreams. That's what I want to help you do here. That's always been my intention. All of 40 years I've been doing this, it's everyone I've worked with, I've always been trying to help them build the future business of their dreams. And we've done a lot of exciting stuff, which I can show you some examples of. So the question I want you to ponder here is what is your big idea for the future business of your dreams? And this is your opportunity to imagine that. Okay. A lot of people have a lot of fear of the future. the media have made people fearful of artificial intelligence. A lot of the articles they've written, and there's a healthy skepticism that's necessary, but I want you to start thinking positively about what the future could be, and what would be your dream. What would you love to have? What would you love to have? And in 2014, I decided, this 10 years ago, that I wanted to make my business completely virtual so I could work anywhere, and I wanted to make 10 times more money and have a lot more fun. And so that's what I did. And it took me a number of years to get there. But actually, by the time the pandemic happened, I was fortunate because I had a virtual business at that point. So I wasn't tied down to a lot of real estate or anything that was problematic for a lot of other people. So I've done this for myself, and now I'm thinking again about what the next 6 years might look like. What's my future business look like going forward? So I'm always thinking about that. So I'm going to explain how to use what I call new factory thinking in order to do that. Okay, and that's my terminology. And this is something I can tell you that all the people I've taught this to, uh, so many of them have come up to me and said, this really changed everything because I was kind of locked in a certain paradigm, and you opened up my mind to something completely else, and I could see opportunities that I never even thought existed before. And so that's why I'm always excited to do this. I met a fellow recently who had a business, and he heard my talk. This is about 8 years ago, and from that talk, he came up with this new idea for another business, and that he had just when he talked to me, he had just sold it for $40 million. So he heard this talk, got a big idea, and created a business that he sold for $40 million. So um, I didn't get any dividend for that, but I'm okay. But he was very excited by it, and he wanted to create another business from that. So hopefully that'll happen for you. So this new factory thinking is going to help you do some very specific things. One is grow your business, um, get more high quality customers. So it is a marketing thing. It's going to help you generate higher profit revenue, which the only really way to create a better business is say, I want to work less and, make more. And so we're going to show you how to work less and also earn passive income, which is really the way you got to be thinking about the future too. It's passive income, but a lot of people talk about that, but how do you actually do that? So overall, my intention, and it's not a promise because I obviously can't promise this, but it is my intention to help you make 10 times more income, okay? And work 50% less and have 100 times more fun running your business. That's my intention. So it's kind of like if I was coaching Olympic athletes, I would be trying to help you win 5 gold medals. I'm not here to help you win a bronze medal. I want to try to help you win 5 gold medals, okay? And so I suggest that you make this something like this your goal, okay? If you want to scale your business, like a lot of people have written books about scaling, scale up. 10 times is easier than 2 times, and so on. And those are all really good books. But I always wonder, what are we scaling up here? Are we just scaling up more work and more trouble, or are we scaling up a business that's going to be our dream business? So that's the kind of business we want to scale, right? So what we have that we use with our clients, the members of our program, we call it the Big Idea Future Innovation System. And we've been working on refining this for really the last 40 years since I really started my business. And we've had 5,000 companies go through this, entrepreneurial companies go through this. And every time they did, we got it more and more refined. We figured out more and more what works and what didn't, and just kept the stuff that worked. And our system is based on this model. It's called New Factory Thinking. So I'm toying with you. I haven't told you what it is yet, but that's what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples as inspiration, and also potentially to give you ideas for your own business. Okay. So this fellow here, Rick Goet, I met him 10 years ago. I spoke at a conference at MIT. Actually, it was a global entrepreneur conference, and I talked about new factory thinking. And and uh, and he came up to me afterwards and says, "Yeah, well, I'd like to have a new factory." And I said, "What's your old factory?" And he said, "Well, I make and sell these air filters that go in airplanes. So the airlines are my customers, and it's kind of a good product because they have to keep replacing them. But it also is very competitive, and the margins aren't that high. So I'm really liking this idea of your new factory thinking, what could that possibly be?" So I said, "Well, does the airlines have a problem that no one's helping them with?" And he said, "Yeah, well, they often have these parts that they can't find, and because of that, they can't fly the plane, right? And that costs them a lot of money." I said, "What, you mean the air filters?" He says, "No, no, any part, like a bolt that hangs, holds the wing on or something, kind of important, right? They can't fly the plane." So, he said, "We're thinking that we'd like to tell our customers that we could help them with that too." So that's what he did. He went to the airlines. He talked to their customers. Said, "If you have a part you can't find, we can help you find it. Now, we'll try anyway. And of course, for all that work, we might charge you $10,000 to find a $5 part, but at least now you can get the plane off the ground, right?" They said, "Okay, well, go ahead and see if you can find it because that's a huge problem for us." Anyway, so they started helping the airlines with that, and they started finding these parts, and they actually made some pretty big money from it. So we started calling it the Right Now program. You need that part right now, and it turned into a website, and it sort of turned into the Amazon essentially of parts for the airline industry because basically we just put all the hard to find parts up there, and then any kind of part. And when the airlines would go and buy a part, they would get points, okay? Because they're members, they get these membership points. So they always had this credit of points. So they just kept coming back to keep using the points. They never kind of ran out of points, right? And this has been a huge thing. And interestingly, he sells like twice as many air filters now, um, on the site because this is where everybody's coming now to buy things, and I need air filters, so they buy his. But he also sells his competitors' air filters, and that was a big shift in their thinking that I had to get them to see. You want to have your competitors on there because then that's the place where everything is, and then you can make money from that. You'll get your commission for selling that part. So even if your customers buy your competitor's air filter, you're going to make money. So this is a whole different way of thinking about business because he was very competitive when I met him, but started realizing, "Oh, I need to let that go. Like just let go of competition." So that's one of the ways that new factory thinker is different. We actually don't even there is no competition. That doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it's not even a concept. So anyway, so he's think about how valuable that business is right now that he's done that. And even if all he wanted to do was market more air filters and sell more air filters, this actually worked for him, right? Because he had a big idea and created something new. And it was really started with saying, "Well, what problem does my customer have that no one's helping them with?" And usually the solution to those things isn't all that complicated. It's just having the intention to do that new thing. So what I've learned from talking about this is that a lot of people at this point go, "Yeah, well, that was great for him and everything, but that sounds like a lot of work, and everything we're doing right now is working and it's just hunky dory. And why would I want to go to all that trouble to do that?" Right? It sounds great that he makes all his money and everything, but I don't know. It just sounds like a lot of trouble. And really, what I've learned all this time is that it's so important that we're always reinventing our business. This is something we always have to be doing. Okay. And I'm going to show you a way to do that. So we're not going to muck up what you're doing right now, but we always have to have part of our business is the reinvention part. Okay. And this is so important for three reasons. Like one, um, is that our customers are always changing. What they want and need is always changing. So you might have something right now they want, right, or need, and that's selling great. But tomorrow, they might not need that anymore. They might not want that anymore. And it's hard to imagine that, but that's over 40 years I've seen this happen to so many companies, including my own, that something that was very popular one day is not the next, is because something else came along. I remember when we had these bulletin board systems we were selling and installing and running. And it was a great business for like 5 years. And then the World Wide Web came out and web pages, and that just knocked that right out. Like nobody ever wanted to talk to me again about bulletin boards. Okay. So we had to shift into doing websites and stuff. So that's always changing. The second thing, related to what I just said, is that new technology is always coming along, and it's always changing how business is done, right? And so this is what I was telling people in the 90s. I said, okay, we got this internet thing, and I know you like email and everything, and you got a website and stuff, but this is actually going to change how business is done, right? It's going to put like stores out of business because nobody will need to go to the store anymore because it would be buying online. And they were saying, oh no, people aren't going to buy online. Who's going to put their credit card in on a website? Like, there's no way. I know that's what they were saying. I said, no, it's going to change everything. This technology. So that's what we're facing now with artificial intelligence and other things, right? So we can't just sit on our laurels and say everything's good because new technology comes along and screws that all up. Like think of a taxi company with smartphones and apps, and you ended up with Uber, right? It disrupted them. The third thing is that, and I think this is the most important one, is that you're always evolving. Okay, you're always learning new things. You're always developing new skills. You're always developing new interests and so on, and you're always capable of transcending your current value position. Okay, so if you got really good at running a hot dog stand, that's great, but you're actually capable of being a gourmet chef. Okay, and so you are capable of going to that higher position, right? I think gourmet chefs at a higher position, and yet most people never do. They get stuck at that lower position running the hot dog stand, and that is such a shame for so many reasons, for people personally, but also for the economy and everything, right? So that we're just stuck in a certain place, and that's not where we should stay, right? So it isn't, but just got caught up in our old factory. Okay, so that's why we need to reinvent ourselves. And I really learned that lesson so many times. But the one I always remember was Kodak, because I had Kodak as a client. Kodak Canada. We did all of their publications. We went to them and said, "Hey, we have this new electronic publishing system, and we can do your publications for half the cost and twice the time, or half the time." And so I got all the business. So I knew the president of Kodak Canada. And 1995, my photographer that I worked with bought a digital camera, professional digital camera, which was the size of a bread box. It was $15,000. The quality wasn't that great, but it was amazing because you could just take a picture and upload it on the computer, and we could put it into all of our publications, right? So saved a lot of steps. And so I said, let's show it to the president of Kodak Canada. I thought he'd be totally into it. And he totally dismissed it. He said, oh, there's no way people are going to want to use that. Film is always going to be the thing. It's so much better. Quality's better. There's so much more creativity you can do. I said, no, 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 no. I said that this thing is going to be cheaper and cheaper, digital photography. Its quality is going to keep going up. And it's the future, right? And no, it's not. There's no way. Okay. So I was kind of astounded because the guy was obviously a really smart guy. But I realized that he just couldn't see it because he didn't want to see it. Because he was stuck in old factory thinking. He was thinking, okay, well, Kodak is a film company and film is our business, right? And that's it. That's what we are. Even though they called themselves an imaging business and everything, in their DNA, it was, no, we are a film company. And they were all chemists and, in dark rooms and so on, making film, chemical engineers. That was their business, right? So this is what can happen to all of us. We can just not see it, right? We not see the possibility. So I go, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll just put that not seeing over one side and have one side of ourselves say, okay, I'm willing to try to see what might happen here, right? That I should just always assume that something different's coming and I better be ready for it. All right. So hopefully I made the case for that, right? Okay. So old factory thinking, it tells us certain things. And so what I realized from working with so many people is that when people would tell me about their business, they were always telling me the same story. Like it always came out kind of the same, like different details, but the structure of the story was the same. They tell me about their product, they tell me about their operations, and then they would tell me about their sales and marketing and how they were doing with that. Okay. But it always started with the product. So, like they say, well, I sell hammers, right? And then they tell me about their hammer factory, and then they tell me about how they're marketing their hammers, right? And I realized that that was a problem because we'd been thinking that way for 200 years, but the world had really changed, right? We were in a whole different world, primarily because of the internet. And now, old factory thinking, which is what we all 99% of people still use, okay, is that it tells you that your business is your product and your product is your business. So we're a hammer business. Hammers are a business. We are hammers. It's all hammers all the way down. Okay. The second thing it tells us, we're in a competition here. Okay. That's what business is. It's a competition. So we're fighting against the other hammer companies and we're trying to beat them out, right? And we're telling people we got the best hammer and so on, right? It's just a big competition. Uh, However, we don't feel like we can raise our prices, right? Because we'll lose customers. If I'm selling hammers for $10 or something, I can't lower the price, raise the price to 20, okay? Because nobody will buy it. Everybody will go to the other guy that's selling them for $8, right? So we start to think that we could never make more money from selling our product. This is really a huge mind block. Um, the other thing is we think the future will unfold gradually just as an extension of the present. That there won't be any kind of huge change. Okay, so we look forward to the future. We say, well, I'll have a smartphone, but I'll have the iPhone 25 or something, and maybe it'll have AI on it, maybe, um, and it'll be just really faster and so on. Maybe I can look at more YouTube pictures or something like videos, but it's just going to be kind of more of the same. Okay, that's it's called the status quo bias. It's very hard for us to imagine things being radically different. And then the last one is that we feel like innovation and reinvention is risky. I start mucking around with all that stuff, then I'm going to screw up what's already still working. And so, I think of all the people that have tried to create new things and how they all went broke and everything, right? And they point to all those failures, right? And and then they talk themselves out of doing any kind of reinventing, right? And so this is old factory thinking. I mean, in the books, I've gone into way more detail about this problem and this way of thinking, but that's basically the the issue with it, right? It really, really does restrict your potential. So, um, so it's kind of like your head is in a vice, okay, and it's just like holding you back from getting anywhere. Because what I realized is that when people told me that old factory story, they'd also tell me about all their challenges. Like, so, well, I'm having a hard time getting more customers. I'm having a hard time making more money. We're having a hard time scaling our business. We're not really getting where we want to get to as much as we want to. And I realized that all those challenges had their basis in the old factory thinking. And until they changed their thinking, there's no way they were really going to ever truly address those challenges. Like there was no way. You could try all you want, but until you change the way you think about your business, it was going to be very, very hard to get through those problems, right? So that was my insight of that. And then I thought, well, there's got to be another way. And the other way was new factory thinking. Okay. And this isn't something I invented. It's just I started to notice, what does the marketplace reward now? What does the market, why is Apple being so successful and Google and Facebook and so on? Why are they being so successful? Well, because they are using a different way of thinking. So once you use this new way of thinking, it really does free up your mind, gets you out of that vice, and liberates you to really see all kinds of opportunities that weren't there before. So this is why, the biggest innovation we need isn't really AI so much. It's changing the way we think. That's the first big innovation. So what are the benefits of new factory thinking? Okay. What are we going to get out of that? Well, one is it'll help you stand out from the other customers, the other competitors in your marketplace. Okay, so I call that the penguin problem. Um, if you just have sort of a standard offer to people, no matter how much you dress it up, it's still kind of like what everybody else has got. So you don't really, it's really hard to stand out with that. Okay. I get so many messages on LinkedIn from people trying to sell me something. And if I read them at all, I go, well, that's just a generic thing. I've heard that 100 times from 100 other people. Right. And it's, I think it's sad because it's like they don't have to do that, but then they're kind of wasting their time. Okay, because they just don't really stand out in my mind. I look at it and then I go, man, not interested. It'll help you make new higher profit products and services. So that's where things can really get interesting because if we're selling hot dogs, that's fine. We'll keep doing that. But now we'll also have a gourmet meal to sell. Okay. And you'll be surprised how many people will want to buy the gourmet meal. You've been going along trying to get people to give you $10, and now suddenly you got something that's $10,000, and that's actually easier to sell, and it's insane. And one of the things that I've always realized by that is if you're trying to get somebody to pay you $10, that's probably their last $10. Okay, they're gonna have to pull that out of their hand. Whereas you're going to somebody that might have $10,000 to spend. That's not their last $10,000. So we really want to be in that world, right? That gourmet world here. Next one. It's also going to help you create a high value platform business, like the one I mentioned with the Right Now program. That's based on the business principles and strategies used by Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. Because that's basically what I did. I started looking at them. In the '80s, I worked for Apple as one of their marketing people and as a contractor. So I knew that business really well. And then I saw what they did, right? I saw the shift they made. And I started studying that and going, we can all do that now. And one of the things is today we really can because the technology that they use that they had to develop and spend millions of dollars on, it's basically available to us now for free. So the technology is not the barrier here now. Anyone can do what they do, but it's the thinking behind it that we need to develop, and that's actually harder. And at the end of the day, this is also why with AI and so on, it's important that we have a framework for using it. Okay, so if you use this new way of thinking, new factory thinking, you're really going to be able to take advantage of AI and augmented reality, the Internet of Things, quantum computing, which is just around the corner too, and a laundry list of many other technologies, right? So we don't want to be chasing the technology so much because that typically then means we've got this tool that's looking for a problem, all right? We want to find the problem and then solve it using the tool. So it's just it's flipping it around. But it will help you take full advantage of this. That's why I think we've run into the little AI bubble now because everybody got using it and there's all this excitement and a lot of hype around it. And then people say, okay, well, it's pretty good, but it's not changing my life the way I thought it was going to do. It's not radically doing that. I do believe it will eventually, but it's because eventually we'll start figuring out a better way to use it, right? So an example is someone that also created a new factory that was incredible is Nick Bloor. So he was also at that same MIT conference I spoke at. And he came up to me and he said, well, my old factory is we cut grass. And I said, oh, yeah. He says, well, we're the biggest property maintenance company in Australia. We cut more grass than any other company. And we work with all the big cities and cut grass in their parks and so on. I said, well, that sounds amazing. He says, yeah, but it's an old factory. I'm in a competitive position. The margins aren't very good. There's so many moving parts. The capital investment is huge. It's very risky. And frankly, the whole business is driving me crazy because there's just too much complexity. Right. And I said, okay. So he says, I want to have a new factory. I want to have something better, like what you're talking about. So I got to know their business a bit, and I found out they had this logistics software that they use to schedule all their, jobs, right? So they would say, go and cut the grass here, go prune the trees here. It was sort of AI before AI, really. And but it was a really cool thing, and they'd spent over $1 million developing that technology. So I said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to package this up as a new thing, and you're going to call it IVM. That was the first thing I said. Call it IVM, which it stands for Integrated Vegetation Management Program or and System. Okay, and IVM. So that sounds better than grass cutting. And we're going to actually give that software to the cities for free. Okay, if they want it, they can have it for free. And he said, why would I do that? So then I explained it to him. He said, oh, that's kind of like playing three-dimensional chess here. I said, yeah, exactly. Okay. So he went to these customers of his and he said, look, I'll give you this logistics software free and you can use it for all your projects and it'll help you save time and save the taxpayer money and so on. And they all went for it. They all loved the free thing. And then he said, now I have these other two levels. I have memberships of 50,000 a year and 250,000 a year. And when you sign up for that, we integrate this technology with your supplier's technology, all your contractors. So it's one integrated vegetation management system, right? And they said, okay, let's do it. So all the cities signed up for one of the memberships. And then he went to these contractors and said, well, you got to be on this thing because city of Melbourne's saying that. And it's 10,000 a year for you to be on it. And they all said yes because they wanted to keep the client. But the interesting thing was a lot of them were actually his competitors in some of these cities where he didn't actually have the grass cutting. But I told him, don't worry about that. These are now customers of yours. And he said, yeah, oh, yeah, great. So at this point, the last time I talked to him, let's see, he's got 45 cities and he's got 320 suppliers signed up for this. Okay. And so, so this was very successful. It's now a whole platform, right? And this works so well. This was the kicker here. It works so well that he decided to sell his old factory. He didn't want to be involved in that anymore. I don't want to think about grass cutting anymore. Okay. And when he got the new owners, he said to them, he said, listen, I have all these members I'm signing up and I will send them to you. I just want 10% of any of the gross of whatever you bill them as my commission for forever. Right. And they said, okay, sure. So he tells me now that he makes more money from his old factory than when he owned it. Like you said, it's crazy because that 10%, I get it. I don't have to give any of that money to anybody. It's pure profit, right? And so he said, I never would have thought of this unless I knew new factory thinking. Like there's no way I would have ever imagined this because he said, I always thought that a business was you do something like cut grass and then people give you money. That's it, right? So, but now he said, I don't cut the grass, but when grass gets cut, I make money, but I don't have to cut it. Never would have imagined that. I never would have thought that that's a possibility, right? Because his old factory thinking got in the way of that, but now he has a different view, right? And so he has a much smaller team, much less to think about. He doesn't have to work anywhere near as much. He makes way more money. He got his capital out of his old business, and he just thinks his new factory thinking is the greatest thing ever, right? And think about how that can just keep scaling without really too much trouble, right? So the distinction between these two ways of thinking are old factory thinking is very product centered or service centered, right? Our business is our product is our business. Hammers or cutting grass, right? The new factory thinking is idea centered. Okay, it's a different thing, right? We'll help you find that part right away. We'll help you, manage your vegetation in a more integrated way, right? So there's an idea there that's the anchor, not the product. If you have a product as your anchor, you're very vulnerable, okay, from change and competition and technology, right? So we want to anchor our business around something that can't be disrupted. Second thing is we're very category captive when we're old factory. We're in an industry, right? Or we're in a category. So the hammer people are in the hardware industry or the hammer industry or whatever. You feel captive, like you can't go out beyond it, right? Whereas that's not the way Apple thinks, right? They used to. We are a computer company, but now they're value hub expansive. Okay, and I'll talk more about value hub in a minute. But they basically say our business we can do anything with our business. We don't have to be just doing hammers, right? We could change into screwdrivers if we want to, or ladders or something. But more importantly, we could do anything. Um, we could sell anything because we're just trying to help our customers, right? So imagine if Apple was still just doing computers, or Amazon was still doing books, right? Their value hub expansive, and that is the hardest one right there. I can put a circle around that, and that value hub part is the hardest part for people to do, because we've been so brainwashed that your product is your business your product, and you shouldn't stray from that. Okay. The third thing is the most old factories are very physical. They have a lot of physical things like lawnmowers and stuff like that, and the value is very tangible. Instead of I cut the grass, you see me cutting the grass, or here's the product I hand to put it in your hand, right? Whereas new factory is virtual and intangible. So going into the future, most businesses, I would say, I'm just going to say 90%, are going to be virtual and intangible. Like, there really won't be a building to look at, and there won't be a product you really can see or hold in your hand. Okay. That's when 90% of the new economic value will be virtual and intangible, right? Doesn't mean you won't have an office, maybe. It doesn't mean you wouldn't have a store. It doesn't mean necessarily you wouldn't have a factory, but it means that you don't necessarily want to have those things if you don't need them, right? Okay. So this kind of thinking is being rewarded in today's network marketplace, because the old marketplace was based on factories and assembly lines and so on. This is a networked economy we're in now, which is the internet, right? We're all connected to each other. Yeah, that's what's really changed everything and created all kinds of opportunities. So here are the 6 major principles and strategies of new factory thinking. Okay. And we're going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to show you how people have used them. Okay. So this is where you'll start getting all kinds of ideas for your business here, because you could start at any one of these. It doesn't matter where you start. But ultimately they all fit together. So you'll end up using them all, right? But you can start anywhere. But I'm going to just do it in a linear fashion, starting with the big idea. Now, before I get into that, I'm going to give you some relief here about all this, because you're probably going, oh my God, I can't do this. Maybe I can, I don't know. But it seems great for them. But here's the way to really make it simple. It is, we're going to have 2 entities. Okay. So we're going to have the old factory, which is our existing business. And we're not going to change that at all. Okay. Nobody wants to change anything. So let's not try to change anything. Okay. So we're going to keep our old factory, but we're going to then add a new factory, brand new thing, just even just in our minds right now. Okay. But it's kind of like we go across the street and go, oh, we got this vacant lot. What could we build here if we don't have to worry about the old factory? Starting from scratch, what would that look like, right? So if you were a taxi company, you might have gone across the street, start thinking, well, different way to do taxi? Oh, Uber, right? Or you got a hotel, you go across the street. Oh, different way to do hotel, Airbnb, right? It gives you the freedom to actually imagine such a thing. So this very simple method is very powerful, and it's what I've been doing forever, really. When I had my old factory, I had we were doing all this marketing stuff and lots of people. I had 30 people working for me, and I go, you know what? I've kind of reached the end of my rope here with this. So I went across the street to Starbucks and I said, I'm just going to plan a new business over here, and that's how I created the whole Big Idea Company. Right? So I had my old company. I still kept that going. I was spending 89% of my time. These are the numbers I came up with. 89%. 11% of my time I would spend on the new factory, thinking about that new Big Idea Company. That was 1998. And since then, we've had 5,000 members in the Big Idea um, program. And at a certain point, I sold my old factory to my partner, just like um, the grass cutting guy did. So Nick. So this is how I've done the same thing. Okay, and now I'm thinking ahead now, going, okay, what's my new factory for AI, the AI world? That's what we're working on now. So this is what you can do too. Okay, so we're going to keep the lights on with the old factory. We're going to We're going to think about what the new factory is. So now we're going to build this new factory. Well, we need to use new factory thinking to do it, right? And so the first principle is that it needs to be driven by a big idea. Just as I mentioned, it's not a product idea. Like if you have product ideas, put them aside for a second, okay? Just it's good, but we want to have those too. But we want to think about the idea here, okay? Which is what's a big idea? It's something new, better, and different that takes everything to a much higher level that people will only be able to get from you. Okay, so it truly is that gourmet idea, right? That we're thinking, what would be something even more premium, bigger that I could do, right? But not an idea yet. It's more about the intention. It's about what am I trying to help somebody accomplish? What's the big problem I'm trying to help them solve? What's something sort of higher level that we could do for them that would help them achieve that goal and solve that big problem that no one's helping them with, right? So that's the where we start, right? And we can think really big and then ultimately start small, but we only allow ourselves to think really big about what this idea might be, right? So in my case, when I went across the street to Starbucks, I said, you know what, we're doing all these marketing things, but that's kind of like we're marketing plumbers. Maybe we could be marketing architects. And then I thought, you know, that's good. And we're going to help them come up with big ideas. And that was that my big idea was a big idea. Okay. Um, and so that's what's driven the business forward ever since, right? Was that. Now, here's a great example of this because it works so well. Okay. So Bill Simpson, his old factory, he's a consultant that does inventory management. Okay. He'd been in business quite a long time, very, successful enough. But he said, yeah, lots of competition. There's so many inventory management people out there. I can only charge so much as, per hour and so on. So I feel kind of stuck, and not achieving my full potential. So I said, well, what is the ideal that you're trying to help people accomplish here? And immediately he told me, he said, well, to help them have a balanced inventory. Okay. That they don't have too much or too little inventory on hand at any point. I said, what's the big problem? He said, well, it's an unbalanced inventory. They usually have too much or too little, and it just gets all screwed up. And I said, well, that's your big idea then. So we created the balanced inventory model. Okay, like it's his ideal. And he went out and they presented that to a bunch of companies. This first 6 companies he presented it to, they all hired him. And they went into his program. And when they were in his program, they were paying him basically twice as much as what they had previously been paying him. But now, because they were in a, or would have paid them, because they were in a program now, and they were working towards their balanced inventory. Okay, and it gave a lot of really powerful direction. And if they wanted to have a balanced inventory, there wasn't anyone else to go to except Bill Simpson. Okay, so you want to have an idea like that as something powerful that people can become, something better they can become, like have a balanced inventory, and then own that idea, right? Put that out there. When people, it's not about you, right? It's about them. And if they want to have a balanced inventory, then they're going to want to work with you, right? And then you put them in a program. Okay. So he was just so happy with this. He really didn't have to change much. Okay. He was still doing basically the same thing, but he packaged up and put forward an idea that did justice to what he was all about. Right. So he couldn't say enough about this way of thinking. The second one is that it's customer centric. Okay, so people talk about being customer centric and all that kind of thing, but they aren't really that. Okay, you're selling hammers, and you go, frankly, I would just sell a hammer to anyone who wants to buy one. I don't care who it is. Okay, just if they buy a hammer, I'm happy. Okay, so typically a lot of old factories have a lot of different kinds of customers. And that gets really complicated, and it's really scatters your marketing all over the place. So if we are though customer centric, we say I'm going to start with who I'm going to help. I'm going to be very clear about that. Okay, and I'm not going to fire any of my old customers. I still have the old factory, nothing like that. But I'm going to think going forward, I want to have the ideal customer. Okay, and I've always said that the quality of your business is not based on the quality of your products and services. It's based on the quality of your customers. Okay. So this is your opportunity now to say, only my very best customers are going to be in my program. They're going to be in my new factory. Okay. You can do that. I also call them green lights. Okay. I don't want any yellow lights. I don't want any red lights. I want green lights in my new factory. Okay. So since that, those 5,000 people that companies have been in our program, all of them have been green lights. Okay. And my definition of my customer is an entrepreneurial business person. Okay. That has good intentions and is very ambitious. Okay. Like they have some ambition. They want to do some more with their business and they have good intentions. Right. And all of them that I've worked with, and some of you are here, are that. So it's just been the best kind of business, right? Because I'm always dealing with great people, right? Now, initially, I still had some clients that weren't great, but I still made money from them. But as my new factory got going, I go, well, I don't need those people anymore, right? So who is it do you want to help? This is the key, and you want to make them the ideal people, okay? Because there's lots of them out there, all right? So Rick Scruggs is a financial advisor in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I've known Rick for a long time, since 1998. And we've done a lot of work together. Okay. He's been in my program that long. Okay. Anyway, and so he, in the last about 5 years ago, he said, I want to create a new factory and I want to make it about the owners of private businesses because he said there's going to be this huge transition here. All these boomers that own businesses that are going to have to retire or they're going to, kick the bucket. And so they need to make a plan to transition their business and all those assets and everything. It's a huge opportunity. Okay. So he was very clear about, owners of these fairly, fairly large private companies, and so what he did was he created the Abundance Business Coaching Program. So when he goes out into the marketplace, he says, look, we specialize in working with people like you, the owners of private businesses. And we have two levels. We have a basic level where we're the financial advisor. Okay. But you may already have a financial advisor. Or you could get another one, but we have this business coaching program now that's trying to help you have an abundant future. So that's the idea behind it. And so he presented it to them that way. And at this point, he's had, I think it's 46 members sign up. And the annual fee is $60,000 to $120,000 a year. Okay. That's before any financial products. As a matter of fact, they don't even have to buy any from him. Okay. Fact is, though, almost all of them have, like 90% of them have, but financial products, some huge life insurance policies and so on. Okay. But he is zeroing in on this market of the private business owner, right? That's what's driving this. And anything that can help them make that transition and have an abundant future is something that he's engaged in. So recently he wrote this book called What's Wrong with My Thinking? And it's all about how a lot of business owners, ironically, have a scarcity mindset. They get to a certain point and they kind of get very defensive about their business. And he said, you need to open up your mind to abundance, right? So he's been out there using that book to market himself, meeting more business owners. He's had historically other kinds of clients, but these are the ones he really likes working with, is those people. So who's the ideal customer type for you? The third thing, as I mentioned, which is the toughest one in a way, but after a while not is great, is the value hub attitude. Okay. Which means two things really. One is that you're okay if your business morphs into something else. Okay. Like I've been in business for 40 years, but it doesn't mean I've been doing the same thing for 40 years. It kept evolving. Initially, I was doing electronic publishing. Then we turned into an internet company, and we did all kinds of bulletin board systems. Then we started doing websites because we kept up with the marketplace, right? So we just kept evolving, and I was really willing to, change as the marketplace changed. That was actually kind of exciting. The other thing, though, was just to say, you know what? We're willing to do almost anything, right? So if we sell hammers, we're good with screwdrivers too, right? We might partner up with a screwdriver company, but that's fine. We could do ladders. We could do ham sandwiches. We could do car leasing. We could do insurance, just like Apple, right? Like Apple has an open-ended thing that they're doing, But like I say, this is a very hard one. So imagine if it was 1998 and you're in the advisory board or whatever for Apple, and they're trying to figure out how to sell more computers because their business isn't doing very well in 1998. Um, and so they were trying to figure out, how do we sell more computers? And somebody put up their hand and said, well, I think we should sell music. And there's sort of like this silence in the room and say, okay, well, let's vote on that now. Let's vote on, should we sell music? Now, I know that at that point, I probably would have voted no. I think most people would have. And their objection would be, we're not in that industry. We don't know anything about music. We would lose our focus. We got to get back to the computers. But obviously, that was a good idea in the end, right? They've sold billions of songs. But the main reason why it was a good idea was because it broke their old factory thinking. And because now they were a value hub. So now that they have done computers and music, when someone put up, I think we should sell phones. It didn't get shot down right away. I think we should sell watches. Didn't get shot down right away, right? They considered it and they did it. And that's how they became the biggest company in the world. And ironically, they sell twice as many computers now than they did before because they have more customers that have accessed their ecosystem somewhere. Like you like the phone, so you got the phone, and then when you need a new computer, you're going to get a Mac, right? You had a PC, now you're going to get a Mac, right? So so this always helps you sell more of your hammers, okay? But it also opens yourself up to all this other stuff, and of course, a lot of it's passive income, right? Like they don't make music, they never wrote any songs, but they've made more money from music than any other company in history, right? By far, and they're not, are they, what industry are they in? Then what industry are they in? They're in their Apple industry. So Jeff Calibaba really got into the value hub idea. Okay, he's got a new factory. It's called Game Plan HR, and it's a platform for the HR industry. So the customer type are HR departments, the head of HR, basically, and so he has a program that takes people through that. He has a network people can join and so on. But main thing he has through this is this store. He calls it his store, and people who are in HR, they can get anything they need if they're a member through their store. Okay, so they have, for example, a couple of companies that do benefits. Okay, in their store, and so if one of their members needs the benefits for their employees, they can use these benefits company, and when they sign up for that, then Jeff's company gets 10% of the premium that's paid on the group insurance every month. Or basically whatever the benefits company made, they get 10%. Okay, so he says, I'm making money from having a benefits company, but I don't have a benefits company, but I'm making money from that, right? So he is very excited to keep adding really good companies to his value hub, and then referring his members to them and getting that commission, right? Like it's money in the bank, right? And so this is what you can do too, okay? Is to have that kind of idea. So he's really open to anything. There's like about 27 areas that he's looking at opening up as being this single platform. So it is kind of like he's created the Amazon or the Apple store for the HR industry, right? And he's kind of at a point now where no one's going to be able to catch him if they tried to do this. The next thing is intangible value, okay? Tangible value. 90% of value in the future will be intangible. You won't be able to hold in your hand. You won't be able to see it. It'll be invisible, okay? Actually, I put 99%. Maybe I'm going to be even more aggressive with that idea. 99%. And the reason is because intangible value is so much easier to create, really, and to scale and so on. And really, it's because we've really developed, excellent physical capacity in the world. That's still got a way to go with housing and so on, but we're getting there. Is that the rest of it's intangible value, right? And a good example of that is Starbucks. Okay, I go to Starbucks all the time, and I pay like $6, $5, $6 for a drink, right? I drink tea, but it's like $5 for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And how did they get people to pay $5 for a cup of coffee? Because when in the 90s, when they started out, people were paying 50 cents for a cup of coffee, right? And they said, yeah, we're going to figure out how to get people to pay $5. Now, most people in their industry said, well, nobody's ever going to pay 10 times more for a cup of coffee. What would be that? Why would they do that? Right. And they said, no, no, we're going to add to the whole experience of it. Right. So that's why when you go to Starbucks, you don't order from a server, you order from the barista. And you don't order large, you order a venti, you know, and then you can sit there and use the Wi-Fi, and it's a really nice environment and everything. You're really paying the $4.50 for all of that stuff. And it's all intangible, right? So this is what you can do. You can say, okay, my basic product's 50 cents, or that's what we're doing. But what intangible value could we add that would get people to pay 10, 20, 30 times more for this? What could we add to the package, right? And this is what most people don't do because they haven't got their head around that intangible value is worth anything, right? Because what happens when you go to Starbucks and you do that? Well, you're kind of having a treat. You feel like, you know, you're relaxing, you're enjoying yourself, and maybe you feel a little special doing it. And so that's a lot of value there in the perceived value. So, what is that intangible value that you can add to your new factory, right? What is it going to look like? So, Sarah Hodson, her old factory is physiotherapy, basically. Okay. It's a medically prescribed physiotherapy. And so that was her vision, was going to keep adding these clinics. She had a bunch of clinics. We're going to keep adding clinics. Um, this was before the pandemic. Okay. So this is the vision. And I said, well, you could do that, but that, you know, that's could be risky because it's a lot of physical things. Let's focus on the intangible value. So what is your approach to all of this, you know, to helping people? He said, well, what we really do, why our way works is because we're helping them develop healthy habits. So she started telling about these healthy habits. I said, oh, you have the healthy habit model and you have the healthy habit program. And that's really the most valuable thing that you provide, right? So, so what they did was they created this whole program to say you can be a special program that goes beyond the physiotherapy healthy habit model, and we can teach you these healthy habits and help you stay on them. Then the pandemic happened. They had to close down all their clinics, but they kicked right into saying, no, we're going to have this all online. We're going to help you maintain healthy habits while you're locked down and so on. And it boomed, right? Boomed. Okay. So now they're thinking, okay, do we really want to have all these clinics? You know, maybe we just license this methodology to other physiotherapists. Maybe we don't need to have all those clinics anymore. So, or maybe we just have a couple of them, right? Because a lot of overhead, but maybe we need an anchor building or something. But maybe we think of it more of intellectual property. Okay. So it was all about putting their finger on what was really special about them. And that special thing typically is intangible. Then it's to have a virtual platform. Okay. So basically means that your business is anywhere and everywhere, right? And that's what my dream business was, that I just want to be able to work anywhere. And it took a while to divest of all those things that I had. Like my office had a lot of stuff in it. And I remember getting rid of all that. And it was like, whoa, I built this whole business up with all this stuff. And now I'm getting rid of all this stuff. What's going on? And I go, because then it's just going to lighten everything up. It's going to be cheaper and easier. I can be more flexible and so on. So I did it and it was fantastic. So then I can go off to Mexico for a month and work from there. And then I went to Germany and I spent a month living in Germany and I worked from there. And it didn't matter to anybody, right? I was still doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, because I wasn't dealing with all that stuff, it freed up my mind to add more value and start thinking more about big ideas and so on. Because that was really where the value was. Okay. It wasn't in all this stuff that I had. So virtual, right? Make it virtual. Um, and you know, there's a resistance to that too, because we really think often that the stuff we have, the desks and the buildings, and everything, that's a business, right? So we think, well, if I didn't have all that stuff, then do I really have a business? I'm just going to be some guy sitting at Starbucks and saying,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I got they
excuse
dropped
me,
off a package of food.
if you could mute
Hey,
yourself,
Martin.
please.
No, Martin.
Oh, mute, mute, please. Okay. Anyway, so let's go back. Um, okay, I'll just edit that out. Okay, so so I say that this issue of having an intangible business can seem weird, and that's why Blockbuster didn't buy Netflix when they had the chance, because they were looking at their business like, well, look at, we have all these stores and all this stuff in it, and that's a business. And then Netflix, what's, there's no business here. You can't hold it in your hand. You can't see anything. So why would it be worth billions of dollars, right? How could that be? But then we know what happened, right? The world went from tangible, Blockbuster, to intangible Netflix. And that's what's going to happen in so many industries, in every industry really, in the end, is we're going to go from being Blockbuster to being Netflix. And that it's going to be going from tangible to intangible, from physical to virtual. um, it just, it's going to be hard for people to see, oh, that's a real business, right? So Ken is in the business of um, selling birdseed, and he has this huge birdseed plant, factory, whatever, granary in Hagersville, Ontario. And when you drive there, you can see it from 10 miles away. It's really flat land, and you look and you see it there, and it's like, well, that's pretty impressive, So I got there. He says, "Yep, I bought up all the other birdseed companies in Canada. We're huge, but we're dinosaurs." He said, this is a lot of overhead here. How could I have a virtual business? So we created the Feathered Friends Club, which is a network. So anyone that's interested in birds can join this network for free. So his goal is to have 1 million subscribers on that network. And he says, when I get to the 1 million, I'm going to sell my business. And that's what the buyer's going to buy. He's not going to buy my big factory. They're going to buy my 1 million people, because they'll see that that can monetize that, right? And he already has monetized that in the sense he sells more birdseed to these people, but he also now sells bird feeders. So any one of these people on there, they see an ad for bird feeder, they buy the bird feeder, he makes money from the bird feeder. So I didn't have to open up a bird feeder company. I just make money from selling bird feeders, and I have these relationships. So he's he has tens of thousands of them now, and he's just starting to add more and more all the time. Okay, so it's thinking intangible, virtual business. That's the way to go. And that leads me to the last one, which I've hinted a bit about, is the passive income part. You really want to get to that point, okay? Is that you're making passive income, and it truly passive, like you don't have to do hardly anything, okay? So one of my clients does renovations, like office renovation and so on, and she signed up for my 10% club. Okay, so I said, look, I'll send you people, right? And so I sent her a client, and she did the work, and she charged them a fee of $130,000. So I got $13,000 from her for basically making that introduction. That's all I did. Okay, it took me about 5 minutes, and I made $13,000. So that's a pretty good day, right? And then just keep doing that over and over again. Why wouldn't you do that, right? And it really then is about the idea of your business being about connecting people and resources together. That's really what the new factory is, and I'll talk about the airport in a minute. But this is something that you can definitely work towards. Okay, so Peter Turkstra has these lumber stores. Okay, so 10 lumber stores in the Niagara region, actually. Someone here is from the Niagara region, and so we created the Build It Better program with them. And so when somebody comes into the store to buy lumber, he says, hey, you should maybe want to be a member of this program, right? And there's all kinds of benefits to it. But one of the things too is that they refer people to contractors, and they're like their 10% club. Okay. So if somebody's renovating their house or building a new deck or anything, landscaping, they'll say, oh, we've got a curated list of very high profile people, very competent people, and they'll give you a 10% discount by signing up with them because you're a member. And then Peter Turkstra gets 10%. Okay. So he says, oh, suddenly now we're making money for all these people that used to be were our customers, like all these contractors. Now we're actually feeding them business and we're making money. and it's all passive income, right? And the contractor collects the money, so they don't get in the middle of that, but then gives the commission to the to Turkstra. It's because they're under contract to do that, right? So they don't have to get in the middle of all the collecting the money or anything. They just get these checks from the contractor. So they love this thing. Okay. And the other thing too is they're selling all kinds of other stuff too. It's really expanded their business beyond lumber. So um, new factory thinking strikes again. So so the question is, are you ready to create your own big idea and build your new factory, right? This is my mission. Okay. I'm 67 years old. I'm not thinking of retiring at all because I'm like so excited about helping people with this. I met somebody yesterday and we got going on things, and yeah, I could see the light bulb went off and he went so excited, right? So I get a lot of energy from this, right? Keeps me, I'm aging backwards, as so they say, because of this. So what's the strategy then? There's three of them, the key things. So one is to have that idea of the old factory, just keep doing what you're doing, but spend 11% of your time on the new factory. That's not so much. And what happens with that, if you try to do that 11%, it's just going to make your old factory more efficient. You're not going to be wasting your time there. You say, that's the past. I'm going to just kind of make that a little more efficient. And there, in order to have more time to work on the future, right? So that's why it just actually makes the old factory better too. And then we're going to design this whole thing like an airport. Okay. So it's like we have an airline, that's our regular business. Now we're going to have this airport business, right? And it's like a hub. And we're going to make money in all kinds of new ways because it's like an airport, right? We're like at the center of all the activity, all these interactions happening. And, and I would think about AI, for example, a business like this with more and more interactions, more people, more activities going on, that creates a lot of data, and the data is what AI is needs to do its good stuff. So a business like this is going to do much better in the world of AI. Okay, so we're a hub, right, like an airport. And then the third thing, which is very practical, is we're going to think big and start small. Okay. So most people don't do that. They think small and then they start big. Okay. So they have this idea. I got a new idea for paper clips. I got this new kind of paper clip, right? A glow in the dark paper clip or something. And then I'm going to I'm going to get investors. We're going to build this big factory. We're going to make glow in the dark paper clips. And so, if it's dark, you won't lose your thing, right? Sounds like a good idea, right? Okay. Glow in the dark paper. No one thought of that. Okay. So then, but then, maybe you find out that nobody wants that, or someone else says, yeah, glow in the dark paper, I'll do it too. Or, and suddenly now, that was a risky thing because you had a small idea and you did this big thing. So instead, we have a really big idea. I'm going to have this huge thing I'm going to do, right? With the whole airport idea and everything. And then we're going to start small, right? One member, right? We're going to just do a small thing with that one member. That's what we're going to do first, leading towards the big thing, right? And that's what I coach people on, because I go, people have so many ideas and they never do them because they don't know where to start. I go, there's always a place to start. You just got to know where. But you have to have that vision. So Mike Laurie is a great example of this. Okay, so met him a couple years ago, and he was in the business of doing digital twins of buildings. So that's a way of going around buildings and creating a digital three-dimensional image of that building. Okay, so a pretty cool thing, pretty advanced, right? But I said, it's still kind of old factory because it's a service. So his big idea we came up with is the hyper intelligent building. So it's a transformational process to turn regular buildings into a hyper intelligent building. So it starts with the scanning of the building, but then it morphs into like putting in Internet of Things devices on all the different equipment in the building, and then having AI run the building. So eventually, all buildings will be hyper intelligent buildings. That was the term that we came up with, right? So you can have a regular building or a hyper intelligent building. Hyper intelligent building is going to be more efficient to operate, and also more valuable as an asset. So when we came up with this big idea and everything, and I got really excited about it for them. There are people in their company were they didn't get it that they didn't really get it that much, but they were kind of scared about it and everything. And I said, no, let's just start small. So let's find one client and we can start turning their building into a hyper intelligent building. So we just did it on a very small scale with one client. Okay. And we didn't charge them that much. And then they just kept doing more of that. And now, recently, they got a multi-million-dollar contract from the federal government to work on government buildings to turn them into hyper-intelligent buildings. And I thought, well, that'll be a challenge. I always thought the government building, now it's a hyper-intelligent building. That would be cool. But anyway, they got this big contract to do that. Right. So now everybody's a believer, um, and they're sort of halfway onto their trajectory here now because they just got that big contract, right? It'll be easy going forward now because they've got a lot of hyper intelligent buildings they've done, right? They just started with one. This is my map of my business. Okay, it's my airport, and so this is how I've designed my business. So everything I've talked about here, I've done myself. Okay, and you can see it looks like an airport with like 4 terminals, and then there's the gates at each terminal and so on. And what's interesting about the map is it really does show you how sort of spatial the new factory is. Like it's why it's a little challenging at first because it's not a linear thing. It's a globe kind of thing. I mean, it really should be really in 3D, really. Okay, maybe I can do that next time. Um, but um, but this is the way that you can design your new factory, right? And once you get your head around, it's not that hard, but it might look a little daunting at this point. But this is shows you that there's your business could be very fulsome. It could have a lot of ways to make money and be extremely valuable to people, right? And we think big, we map that out, and then we say, where can we start? What's this one simple way to start that? You think of YouTube. They had a vision, millions of people every day uploading videos and watching videos. But the very first day was one person uploaded, very first video was an 18-second video from the San Diego Zoo. And they uploaded that to a very crude platform. And they started working the bugs out and just kept doing it and doing it. And eventually everybody was uploading videos to YouTube. And that's what I've seen happen so many times with the projects we've worked on. So if you have an interest in all this, now this is for people who have not done this before. So don't sign up for this if you've already done one of these, okay? But if you haven't done a big idea session, you can do one with me. I'm just going to send you the link, okay? There you go. And this is a 60-minute session, and it's free. And I'm going to help you come up with your big idea and start mapping out your airport. Okay, so if any of you are on here right now and have not worked on this with me, you can sign up for it. If you've already done it, that's another conversation people can have with me. Okay, so off to the side. But if you haven't done the big idea conversation yet, then I encourage you to sign up for it. Okay, I've sent you a link there. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that new factory thinking to create your unique big idea. We're going to determine how to use your big idea to get more customers, very practical, make more money, build a future business of your dreams. That's why we're coming up with that idea. And then we're going to start developing a plan about how you could get that off the ground. Okay, so like we're going to think big, and then we're going to say, these are the things you can do to start small. Okay, and as I said, it's very important that we reinvent ourselves. Okay, this is not something that we can just say, maybe I'll do it later or something. Like that's the classic thing, right? I'm too busy. I got an old factory to work on. That's what Kodak said. That's what Blockbuster said. You know, that's what a lot of people have said. And then, and then you miss your chance. You miss your opportunity. So this is an opportunity to start working on that. And it will inject a lot of energy into what you're doing because the past, there's no energy in the past. Okay. The present is also very tiring because you got a lot of things, but the future can give you a lot of energy. So